Hello viewers. Well, the PS4 Pro was announced yesterday. We've been looking forward to this for a long time, codenamed the Neo for some time, and really I think last night we just thought we'd talk about our reflection, reaction on some of what we've seen. I'm joined today of course by Martin.
Hello.
And Kevin.
Hi guys.
We're going to debate it all between each other. I suppose kick off, Martin, your thoughts on last night's presentation, just on the whole layout.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most boring Sony conferences I've seen in a while. It was almost like a sales pitch, really, for HDR and 4K, wasn't it, on the whole? Yeah, quite mixed reactions, I think. I mean, I don't know the 4K television myself, so I wouldn't get as much benefit from it. Generally speaking, the layout just wasn't that engaging, was it? I don't think.
Well, I think you're right. I think it was like a conference that seemed to be knocked together on a very small scale. It was like nobody knows what each other's doing, and you know, it was like, we've got this console and we've got to talk about it, and it's about 4K. No, it's about 4K. And why don't we very calmly explain 4K to you? So we're going to do a very calm explanation that this does. I can't remember what the word was. Nearly 4K in some way. Nearly. And this whole presentation is about 4K, and yet the system doesn't actually output 4K gaming. It's outputting an upscaled resolution, whatever it is, to 4K, but it's not actually 4K. And I was listening to this sort of speech, and it was sounding very much like Microsoft's cloud speech. The cloud will redefine gaming. It will do this, that, and the other. You know, you don't need a more powerful console because you have the power of the cloud. And I kind of felt that we had a similar thing here. Somehow there was this online aspect that was going to make the system more powerful and able to turn it into a supercomputer. And then we watched some demonstrations that didn't seem that impressive. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, what Martin said. I mean, I pretty much zoned out pretty early on. You know, Mark Cerny's sort of tone of voice is very almost hypnotic. You know, it makes you fall asleep. But you know, they did pique my interest with one or two little details here and there, which we'll discuss in just a moment. But overall, didn't really engage me all the way through. It was little bits here and there that did. Yeah. It just wasn't enough wow factor. There wasn't enough excitement, energy in the conference. It was all very slow and calm, like you say, and I just needed more energy. I needed more excitement, you know.
I watched it late at night, and yeah, I was not nearly asleep throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. It was very calmly done. We have a new PlayStation. You know, it's a PS4, but you know, more. And it was very carefully explained. This is what an HDR image is. This is what it looks like compared to a normal image, i.e. better contrast. That's what we're talking about here, better contrast.
I felt like a salesperson from Curry's was talking to me.
And if you don't have a 4K telly, then you're going to see a huge difference. And I don't think they really showed enough of a difference between the current console. You're going to get extra bushes and greenery and rock with more detail. And I think, really, you know, is this, you know, and how long is? I mean, bearing in mind the PlayStation is 3 years old this year. How long is the Neo supposed to last for? You know, 2 years, 3 years? I think from a gaming perspective, I was expecting more. The games that they showed, I mean, obviously Horizon looks beautiful anyway, but because we didn't see PS4 compared to PS4 Pro on any of that sequence, we have no idea what we were looking at in terms of, wow, it looks like the PS4 game to me.
Yeah, the other thing is, well, of course, is you're watching it at home on a 1080p TV, so you can't really see the difference anyway.
No.
Exactly, all the off-screen stuff, you had to be at the event, didn't you, to see. And like you say, Alan, the fact that they didn't compare directly the PS4 versus PS4 Pro, I've nearly called it Neo, I'm so used to it, you know, suggests that perhaps, you know, the gains are not as big, or, you know, the fact that people won't see the difference, particularly, you know, when you're not watching 4K to start with. So, yeah, you have to really be at the event, didn't you, to really appreciate the upscale or the improved visuals.
Yeah, I think you know, it's going to be interesting to see how it affects games in general. I mean, will Assetto Corsa run at a perfect 60 without, will it need a patch? How does it work? They're saying all games will need patches and they need to be upgraded by the games companies.
Well, according to Kunos, they've sorted the issues.
So well, let's wait and see. I mean, exactly.
Remains to be seen. Yeah.
I mean, done, dusted. That's it. Gone. 2 weeks, no problem.
Ciao. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? It's so. I think gaming presentation-wise, it was a very sort of rushed presentation. It didn't, for me, sell it to me. It didn't say to me, "Oh wow, I need this hardware." I can't wait to demo this on YouTube. I thought I can't tell the difference between this and a standard PlayStation. And if 4K is all there is to it, then that's not really a huge difference. Like, for me, I would prefer, ultra PC settings at 60 frames per second, 1080p, real detail, lush environments running beautifully in 1080p, and that's what I was hoping to see. But I think in terms of performance, it wasn't. It continues the PS4, and I think it's sort of confusing for the whole scene. And then, of course, it came to the reveal of the actual console. Again, it was a bit uncomfortable. It was like, and here's the new console. And there was kind of a silence, a kind of uncomfortable silence of, people moving in seats. People took some photos and stuff, and it's like, oh, which one is the new one? Oh, sorry. And they bring this sort of matte black, horrible-looking console that's like the new horrible-looking PS4 Slim. I mean, what is it? It's like a backward step. It's like someone just tripped up, and I don't know. It really is like he's holding it there, like, and here it is.
It's crazily.
No one was a massive brick. It looked closer to an Xbox One than it did to a PS4. The quality, the lighting, the gloss, the look of the PS4. It's gone. It just looks shoddy with this new matte design. So visually, I thought huge letdown for this new piece of tech. I thought they could have done it really cool design-wise. And it's
definitely when the original PS4 looks more appealing.
Yeah, the original PS4 looks better. The new styling, whoever they've got in to do styling, doesn't have a clue, and it looks awful. It looks like they studied Xbox One and thought, we need to go down the old VHS route.
It looks like? It almost looks like a PlayStation 4 sandwich or something.
Well, that's it. It's called the burger online, isn't it? People calling it the double cheeseburger.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a double cheeseburger, and it is just a brick, isn't it? It goes into the brick category, not the stylish console individuality category. Again, it's not. It's not good, is it? And I think that they've looked at the PS2 or something for inspiration. Rather than anything else. But to be fair, Sony's designs, I mean, the first PlayStation had a cool individual look to it. I just liked it. The PS2 was nice for its time. It was sleek. It was a different look for a console. That's fine. But then they went to the bread bin for PS3.
George Foreman grill.
George Foreman grill, exactly. Yeah. A massive thing. Bread bin, George Foreman grill. And now with the PS4, they've got a bit more style back. It was sleek. It was more stylish. Had a nice light down it. That's nice. We like a bit of a light.
Especially compared to the X1.
Yeah, exactly. And now they've got this new console, and it just visually looked uninspiring. And I think the audience, there was no reaction from the audience at that point. It was like, oh, it's a black box. It was really.
Yeah, normally it's some sort of round of applause or something like that, but no, nothing.
They were expecting, I think, they were going to do that, and suddenly, woo, yeah, oh my god, have
we
my
love
children.
you, PlayStation.
Yeah, we were expecting that, and I think they were expecting that, and I think when you look
at the whole thing was flat, wasn't it? The whole event was flat.
Yeah, it was flat. I think when you look at the Apple conference that was going on same day, thousands of people cheering, whatever, excitement in the room. I felt there was a real lack of direction, but I felt above all it was a lack of company direction. PlayStation VR will be improved. PlayStation VR will take advantage of 1080p and new resolutions. It will take advantage of the new frame rate and new abilities of the console. It was very calming in that sense, and you think, well, show me some games then. Show me the difference. Show me the difference between PlayStation VR on Neo and PlayStation VR on PS4. And the problem is, it will take advantage of higher frame rates. Well, we all know that if you're not hitting 90 frames per second, VR just makes you ill, basically. So unless Sony start putting out games that are going to make you ill on the PS4, I really can't see a great deal of difference to fundamental gameplay. So, and they're not going to do that. So I think it was a you know, I think if it was a console, and then they come out with the price, November the 10th, $399, whatever.
349 it is.
Yeah, in
349.
the UK.
Yeah.
In the UK, 349 in the UK, is it? And I thought it's a really good price. It's a really competitive price. And then I thought, but what would have been better, I think, is a SKU that was $599 for the upper market 4K people with at least double the power inside. It was drastically more powerful than the PS4, but still played the PS4 games looking a lot better. And then we would see a division in the market. But we got to this point, and I'm having a rant here, but we got to this point, and there's the big loss for me. And this might sound silly to a lot of gamers listening, but inability to play Ultra HD 4K Blu-rays.
Yes, I knew that was coming. I was going to say exactly the same thing. That's
for me, this was if you got a 4K telly, you're like, hey, look at my 4K telly. Look at my 4K supposed 4K Netflix. I can't download 4K. It's impossible in London unless you have like Virgin sort of super business line, which costs you £200 a month or something. No one's downloading 4K in the UK. But 4K Blu-ray is what I want for a 4K TV, and it doesn't do it. But the Xbox One S does.
I know. It's just...
I mean, how crazy? How crazy? Oh, but they could patch it in later. They could. People saying online they could.
No.
If you're pre-ordering a new console, you're doing it for a purpose. I spoke to people last night who were intending to pre-order this console purely because they said, I want a Blu-ray, a new Ultra HD Blu-ray player. You know, I want to enjoy the latest movies on my 4K TV, and rather than get an Xbox One S, I might as well get the PS4 Pro because it's got all the power and everything else. They watched it and said, didn't see enough of a difference in the actual game performance, and the fact that it doesn't have the Blu-ray player, that was my core point. I'll buy something else. Probably an Xbox One S or wait for a Neo.
You can actually stream in 4K with streaming services, but like you say, no Blu-ray player. But you know, you have to factor in the price. I mean, if they're going to include a 4K Blu-ray player, you know, you'd be looking at an awful lot more on top of that price. So
I'm sure it was done to ease manufacturing costs, I imagine. But even so, it could have been such a great selling point.
Completely the wrong direction. You know what? They could have priced that at $599 with a Blu-ray player, and it would sell because Blu-ray players, Ultra HD, are quite highly priced.
Yeah.
And I think that they could have said, you know what? We've got the standard PS4 at whatever $249, and then if you want the full price console, you pay more. They need a clear division between the two. Now they've got two consoles that don't achieve the goal of playing Ultra HD Blu-rays. So if you want a game console that plays Ultra HD 4K Blu-rays, actual 4K content I'm talking about here, you're going to need an Xbox device or go for a standalone Blu-ray player. Simple as that.
It's a massive blow, I think, to the format there, the UHD format.
Huge.
I mean, if you think back to the PS2 and the PS3, they were so instrumental in sort of selling the DVD and Blu-ray format.
Well, this is what frustrates me. This is where I saw them dropping the ball in a big way because, you know, when the Dreamcast came out, I said before, Dreamcast was amazing, had amazing games. People come into the shop and they'd say, Dreamcast, yeah, I like it, but I want a DVD player, and the PS2 plays DVDs. Yeah. So the PS2 literally sold 50% of its consoles based on the fact it played DVDs. Exactly. If Dreamcast had played DVDs, and we were talking about DVDs a long time before Dreamcast was released, Sega refused to include it because it increased the cost or whatever, and it didn't sell.
Dreamcast.
you know what? Believe it or not, money isn't the problem when you're talking about a higher-end product. It's about quality. That's why Apple iPhones are what they are. People will pay for the quality. If that Neo had 4K Blu-ray and the power and performance expected, and it had the style to go with it, people would pay the price. They've paid £1,500 for an OLED 4K TV, £2,000. They can afford a console to go with it. So because they're probably going to spend $599 on a Blu-ray player anyway, they're that type of customer. So the cost isn't the fundamental issue here. It's not the mass market SKU is your PS4. Your Pro is not your mass market SKU. It's a sort of growing sort of development area that gives you another area of the market in terms of the leading edge. And in that sense, again, Sony have sort of slightly lost their way. Their success perhaps has gone ahead.
It says to me they've lost faith really in physical film formats as well. I mean, they obviously see the future lies in streaming services, but then most 4K TVs will have a Netflix and YouTube app anyway.
Exactly.
So there's no real advantage to that.
No advantage at all. You need the physical. I mean, and also, 4K Blu-ray. I mean, anyone who thinks you can stream 4K films, I was saying earlier, is living in dream world at the moment. I mean, I've got a 4K. I've got a 4K screen. I can't download 4K YouTube videos to save my life. I download them and watch them if I really want to see them in 4K. And it don't get me wrong, it looks better, but you need a massive TV to really appreciate it. It's definitely a format that's still some way off there in terms of viability for the wider public.
Yeah, and this isn't going to help the format at all.
No.
It's already struggling as it is. I mean, DVD sell standard Blu-rays as it is. Obviously, UHD Blu-rays are struggling at the moment.
Well, they will do. Yeah. They will do. They need a mass market push.
Expect.
Yeah, and this would have sold it, wouldn't it?
This could have helped.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know a few people already that have cancelled their pre-orders based on it not having that functionality. They've got a PS4, so they're like, well, I'm not gonna bother now. I'll just wait for either get an Xbox One S or wait for a Scorpio.
It's such a bizarre situation to see the Xbox One S have actually support 4K Blu-ray and the PS4 not to when it's a Sony format.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, even price-wise, I mean, it's still cheaper than the PS4 Pro. So I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not nearly as powerful as the PS4 Pro, but it seems like
the Xbox One S, which supports 4K Blu-ray, and then the PS4 Pro that doesn't support 4K gaming, and you've got the PS4 Pro that does the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's a very strange.
They should have called it the PS4 Amateur.
Yeah.
Exactly. Literally, that's what it is, isn't it? Amateur edition. I have no idea. I mean, maybe. Obviously, it was PS4. It was called the Neo, wasn't it? Which is an anagram of one. So maybe the person was thinking, I want a console like the Xbox One. We should design something like the Xbox One. And so in the end they end up with a console that looks a bit like a slanted Xbox One console, and that's it. But I don't know where does the idea come from in a marketing meeting where someone designs it, they come out and they say this is what the Neo is going to look like. Oh, that's amazing. Let's have a round of applause. That's brilliant work, John. So he's managed to take a black box, slant it, and put some matte material. It reminds me of something out of American Psycho and the business card scene. I had a new console with matte. It's just I don't know where the marketing brain comes from for that. And then you have obviously the lack of the Blu-ray, which is a massive feature for people with 4K TVs. It's just massive as a feature for the living room as the one box. Now the one box doesn't do because you'll need a Blu-ray player and a PS4 Pro. That's not going to work for a lot of people. So, very strange decision, wasn't it? I think all round it was I left the conference myself quite flat, quite disappointed, quite unimpressed, I think I went into it thinking I'm probably going to get a PS4 Neo, we'll cover it on the channel, we'll probably need that, it might be kick-ass. I think I left afterwards thinking, do you know what, my PS4 will do me, I'll probably get a Scorpio instead. And I think I think I will get a Scorpio because it's going to be radically more powerful. So, yeah, very, very strange conference. I think given all the time they've had and all the build-up to this, I was expecting a lot more, I don't know, just comparisons, demonstrating great games that are made to use the hardware, demonstrating the VR. I mean, Sony have never really made a big effort on their VR, have they? I mean, there wasn't a great deal at E3. It's almost like we've got a VR headset, but we don't want to tell anyone about it.
I mean, it's only out in like 5 weeks' time,
Yeah, 5 weeks' time it's going to be out, and it's going to sell out day one. And well, it's sold out. I mean, you just can't get one to save your life right now. And it's just strange how they've handled that. So, yeah. Any more thoughts? Yeah.
We have here basically is a 4K movie that doesn't support 4K Blu-rays and won't output in true 4K for games.
Well, I think that's another point. Everyone's talking about 4K. The console doesn't do 4K. It doesn't do 4K.
If it doesn't support 4K, 4K Blu-ray, it won't support the discs.
No. Well, it's.
So you need all the extra storage to support.
You have to say, what is actually
high resolution
4K about this device? It doesn't play 4K.
Oh, there is
Blu-ray.
one thing. It does output 4K screenshots.
It does. It does. It does output 4K screenshots. So there is that.
I mean, most high-end PCs can't even do 4K at the moment, really.
No, you need like a top Titans Z to do it. I mean, you need a top of the range PC, and that can barely do. That can do 30 frames per second. So
we're still a very long way off from true 4K gaming, basically.
We're a decade away. I mean, in terms of game consoles, as your dog has a go there, Marty.
Yeah.
Disagrees. Dog disagrees.
It's not like the
game
PS4.
consoles. No.
Right.
We're still 10 years away. We're still 10 years away from a game. Because what do we need? We need about 16 teraflops. That's really what you need to do actual 4K gaming. So I think it shows, bearing in mind the Scorpio will be 6, and the Titan Z is 11.
Pro is 4.2 apparently.
It's about 4.2, yeah. So you know, so the Xbox Scorpio isn't as much more powerful as I would like it to be. I'd like it to be more like 8, like the 1080, the GTX 1080. I'd have liked a bit more power out of the console because I think it would last a lot longer and it would really build a gap between them and what Sony are outputting. And I think it'd be nice for Microsoft to do that because Sony do not want to release PS5 this side of 2020 at all. And I don't think they want to release it this side of 2022, really, because they want the technology to move on. There is going to be another big step up, and I forget what it's called, in the next couple of years. There's going to be another big step in technology, and they're hoping that will be the one that takes us to true 4K gaming in a couple of years' time. And I forget what the technology is called now, but I'm sure viewers will know. We've got the Pascal technology now, and then there's another level. And I think then technology will really sort of slow down for quite some time then in terms of improvements. So we're hoping the next step will be the one that takes us to true 4K. But yeah, like you say, Martin, it doesn't output proper 4K, does it?
No, which I think is a bit misleading on their part because they're kind of trying to sell 4K and they're sort of trying to lead you to believe that it's capable of doing it when in reality, the majority of games will never reach that.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking on the internet last night, and immediately after the conference, Microsoft ran an advertising campaign on Facebook saying Xbox One S plays Ultra HD 4K Blu-rays, and then you had the Sony fanboys coming on there saying, "Oh, PS Neo is amazing and it plays 4K, and who cares about Blu-rays anyway?" And I thought, spoken by people who truly don't own a 4K TV. Because if you have a 4K TV, trust me, you want to see your films in 4K. That's one of the main things about owning a television. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of great confusion in the market as to what the system actually outputs. And if it's outputting upscaled, so somebody said somewhere on NeoGAF that it's like 2160 is what it actually puts out. So it puts out half the pixels and then upscales those by half to make it look like a 4K image, but it's not an actual 4K image. That's basically the situation. I noticed one of the journalists was asking about it on Video Gamer. Dave Scammell was asking the question on Twitter last night. I don't know where it is now, but he was asking what does it actually output, and it's as I say, we don't actually know, and as I say, the Blu-ray issue wasn't even mentioned in the whole conference.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. I remember thinking afterwards, did I miss something there?
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that even David has just highlighted the fact that Gran Turismo Sport was not at the meeting at all. And that's quite a big omission for them. You would think that GT Sport would be one of the first titles that would be shown, showing the power of.
That's true. Traditionally, Gran Turismo has always been ahead of the competition in that regard, hasn't it? I remember GT4 was one of the first games to support. Was it 1080i or something like that?
I think so. Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, I see what you mean there.
Well, they've got a new camera, which they didn't show last night. They've got a new DualShock.
No, I saw it this morning
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, there's a few new accessories. Oh, there's a vertical stand as well.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Just what you need.
Yeah,
To
that's
make it
just what we
stand up.
need. I just, stood it up
That'll,
anyway.
that'll improve the looks of it no end.
Um,
I'm sure.
and I think the problem is that what the conference didn't show us is the true difference between what we've got currently on our current games and what they're going to look like. And I think Horizon was a lovely demo, but it should have been done somehow split screen so that we could see the difference, like Digital Foundry or something. It should have shown frame rate, split screen. They could have done all that to show you, and I think people would have looked at that and said, "Hey, that looks pretty damn kick-ass," because Digital Foundry will no doubt be all over it when it comes out.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, in a way, it kind of raises the issue as well as obviously it might alienate some console audiences because we're no longer on an even playing field in terms of the low-end PS4 and the higher-end PS4. So with some games looking better on the higher-end one, but again, I didn't really clearly explain that enough.
No.
How big a jump will it be?
No, I mean it says here as well. Share play and remote play boosted to 1080p on PS4 Pro. Also 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. None of that was mentioned in the conference yesterday. I mean, there was loads of tech details and products that weren't mentioned yesterday. Videos looking at the console and the design of the console, why they've chosen that approach to it. I mean, there's a lot you can do with a conference like this. But the actual design of the console, no, I think it looks awful, really, and I think it's a real backward step for Sony. It lacks polish, it lacks class. And I think they have a vision, and clearly they've got this vision that it's going to be an upright system, not laying down. That's why they brought up this stand. That's how they visualise it. It's more like the PS2. I mean, my PS2.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, the PS2 is exactly the same, wasn't it?
I really do feel they've looked at the PS2 and thought, oh, what was our best-selling console? Oh, it's the PS2. Then let's follow that model that's from 15 years ago. And I think that's what they've done. But of course, this console is a lot deeper in terms of its surface area that it covers. It's a very big console to have vertically. It's more like a PC now. I've done a lot of talking in this. Sorry to... But I just think that having seen a lot of these events over the years, it was a particularly poor example.
It's certainly been pretty good lately in terms of their conferences, the E3 and all that.
They had plenty of lots of momentum, didn't they?
Yeah.
Come out and just everything was.
That's why I was so surprised how flat it fell.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Sony will talk a bit more about the PS specs too soon because Mark Cerny's got a presentation coming up, and it should have been more exciting. They should have showed side by side. They should have said, right, this is what you got now. This is what you can have with ultra 4K goodness. Buy it now for $349.
Yeah. Yeah, well that's it. It should have been. Look at the new abilities of the console. It's got this. It's got the new controller. It's got the new camera. It's got this. This is what the games look like on the current PlayStation. Here's an example of 10 games and the difference on the new PlayStation. Here's have a look at games that are now specifically designed for the Pro. Let's look at VR. Here's 10 games on VR. This is how they're going to look on the PlayStation 4. This is how you really sell it to us. So we come away from that saying, but as I say, without the Blu-ray is a massive thing for a lot of people, which shouldn't be underestimated. 4K TV owners want 4K Blu-ray, I guarantee it. They're not going to want 1080p Blu-rays on their nice big £2,000 OLED set. And that's disappointing. They're going to want to see full Blu-ray HDR, and they're going to want a player that can deliver that. And I think that's a massive...
It's the first time in a while, I think, that Microsoft seems to actually have the advantage now with the Scorpio coming out next year and obviously the Xbox One S supporting 4K Blu-ray.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive ball drop from Sony that they've given an open goal now to Microsoft. I mean, I really do feel that Microsoft need to make the Xbox One S as powerful as it can be. They've seen how not to do a conference this year. E3 next year for Microsoft is going to be huge. And let's not forget, you know, if Microsoft have console this powerful, they can easily do 2K VR headsets as well. So you could see a next-gen VR headset release next year for the Scorpio, and I can foresee that Forza 7, good old Dan Greenwald, let me tell you about Forza. I can see it already. Somebody said to me the other day, "What do you think Dan's going to say?" And I said, "Well, it's going to be Forza 7 will be. You know, we're going to have weather now. Forza Motorsport 7 will have the most dynamic weather you've ever seen. You know, we'll model weather around the globe so that when you go to Sebring, you'll see the actual clouds in the actual sky as they appear at Sebring. There's going to be that level of detail. So there'll be this super weather system, and I think also." I wouldn't be surprised to see VR compatibility with Microsoft on a new headset. I don't think they're going to go down the dedicated route of Sony-only headset. I think they could end up using either Oculus or HTC Vive, something along those lines, for compatibility between PC and console, making for a wider audience of their VR titles. But I think if we see Forza Motorsport VR, wouldn't surprise me. It might not be in there because I know how they like to do steps, don't they, at Forza? They might say weather is enough this time, and not do other things. But they've got an open goal, haven't they, now to excite people. And as I say, you're going to see a clear difference between PS Pro titles and Scorpio titles now.
Yeah, so I think as well, going back to VR, the way they kind of promoted VR as being superior on the PS Pro doesn't really give you much confidence how it's going to perform on the standard PS4 either.
No, and like Alan said earlier on, you know, supposedly you need to have 30 FPS, otherwise Sony will knock the game back. So how much more fidelity can you get between, say, 90 and maybe 120 or 20 plus? I mean, how much gain is there possibly going to be? I guess in terms of resolution, there'll be an upgrade, but you know, it's still first generation tech, so I mean, there's only probably so far they can push it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the PS Pro will enable greater geometry, so you'll have slightly better textures, slightly more geometry. Things will all just look and flow better if you've got a Pro. But because we've not seen a difference,
no, exactly.
You know, things will be perfectly playable with the PS4 version. It's just on the PS Pro version, you'll have the same amount of pixelation in the low-resolution headset. It's just the fact that you'll have more detail here and there. But what we really need in VR, and as someone who's tested all of them, I can tell you, we need more resolution. That's literally the problem. It's quite pixelated, and I think the Vive is awesome. I mean, you do forget the pixels, but occasionally on the Vive, when you're dealing with small objects, they were just made up of a few pixels, and they just get a bit blocky. So I think the next gen 2K, once we can double the resolution of the headsets, I think you'll see quite. And we're a long way from 4K per eye, obviously, but I think certainly that there's, you know, if they can increase the resolution of the headsets, I think it will make a big difference, and that will take us through the next few years of development. But yeah, now VR is a very exciting.
They've got to hold off the next generation of consoles because they need the tech to be there. Right. It's no good releasing maybe like 2K per eye or whatever. You know, go for the 4K per eye. Really go for that step up. That second generation should really be.
Yeah, 2022, you know, around that time or whatever. I mean, well, I say the technology becomes available in 2019, 2020. That next step needs to be massive, you know, and I think the problem is this generation, the PS Pro, is actually what we should have had in 2013, I believe, personally. We're getting the console we should have had. I mean, you know, the PS4 and the Xbox One have been consoles that have struggled with frame rate. They've struggled with 1080p, and you think, you know, they just weren't powerful enough to do the job. And I think the companies
are early, basically.
And I think they recognised that. Let's move on, dust ourselves down, and upgrade those console markets. So I do hope, though, that out of it we don't start seeing PS4 games that are shoddily optimised.
That's my worry. Like I've seen before about the VR being inferior. Games of developers prioritise the PS4 Pro, but then again, you know, it depends how much it sells at the moment. At the moment, they have such a massive audience on the standard PS4. What was it? They said 40 million worldwide.
Yeah, 40 million, and we're going to get an update, a firmware update soon, which will bring HDR support to all the existing PS4. So that's fantastic news.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of people flagged that up actually, because apparently the PS4 only supports HDMI 1.4, whereas you need 2.0 to support true HDR. So that's another thing where it might not actually be true
really?
HDR. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh wow! So they're lying once more, are they?
So it's not true 4K and it's not true HDR. Is what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Well, I mean, that's a news story in itself, right there. I think, and also,
How will it work?
well,
Again, they have not been clear on that at all. They just said, "Hey, HDR is going to be compatible with every PS4 on the planet."
yeah, I mean, they did show.
Somehow.
It's like, and here is the PS4 using HDR, and we looked at a bit of gameplay and thought,
On my 1080p TV
wow.
with no HDR.
What am I actually seeing here? Is there something I'm supposed to be impressed by? I don't even know because they didn't show what it looked like without HDR. I think if they compared the two scenes, I mean, who put that conference together? It really was like, oh, look, here it is with HDR. It's nice, bit of gameplay. It means nothing to me, and I think that's the thing. HDR. It's I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see if it makes better contrast on your games. That's really what we're talking about here. A contrast setting for your games. Mm. So here we are with better contrast. Oh, They
did show a couple of games where they kind of switched it on and off, didn't they? But again, I struggle to see the difference.
They did, but again, did it really make a difference to the game?
If you don't have the display to actually, if you don't have an HDR display, it was a pointless showcase, really.
Yeah. It really wasn't very well done. I think the Horizon demo for me was the highlight. The game looks incredible, but because they didn't compare it to the standard PS4, I couldn't really get, where they were coming from with it.
It's worth noting as well. The Xbox One S does have HDR support as well.
Yeah.
Which is one of its selling points. Forza Horizon 3, for example, will support it.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what transpires in the months ahead. I mean, perhaps there's going to be some awesome gaming examples. You know what? I think it's going to be good times for Digital Foundry. Goodness me, they're going to be loving this, aren't they? Testing it out to see if it all works better. And as I say, we'll have to see how it sells, because a lot of PS4 owners aren't going to jump ship now because of that lack of Blu-ray. I mean, do not underestimate that's 50% of the people that were going to buy that console are now not going to buy it. I can tell you that.
Even I thought to myself, maybe next year or the year after I might end up with 4K TV. So the PS4 Pro would be a good investment, but not now. Not now, no. And I for now, all eyes turn towards Scorpio for me now. That's it. PlayStation VR, Scorpio. That's where my direction is, and possibly PC upgrade of some kind, and that's it. So I'm still enjoying VR and stuff like that on the PC. I'm enjoying it develop. But sorry, Martin, it was. So what we're left with basically is a mid-generation upgrade that no one really asked for. It doesn't do what it set out to do.
Well, yeah, we're left with an upgrade that essentially wasn't needed because they didn't do a good enough job in the first place. So that's really where we are. And I mean, I've been consistently complaining about the power of these consoles since they were first announced. I've always said they weren't good enough, and and I think the Xbox in particular was dropping the ball. And I've spoken to some very senior people in these game companies, and Microsoft in particular, and I've said the same thing. I said you dropped the ball with it because it looks like a VHS player. It's underpowered. The focus was in the wrong place, and the big problem with Sony and Microsoft on this generation is they wanted to make money out of the hardware from the off. And if you look at the success of consoles in history, the most successful consoles have always been consoles where they've not made any margin on the actual consoles themselves initially, because it takes it. For example, back years ago, what would have happened is where we've had the NVIDIA 1080 and the Titan Z launch this year, you've had Microsoft go to NVIDIA and say, right, the 1080, we'll buy several million units off you. Don't release exclusivity to us. Don't release 1080 this year. Don't release Titan Z. We'll have a console released that's more powerful than any PC card available on the market. Great. They get a full year on the market with a more powerful system, and that worked in that way in that console cycle. But now it's the PC cycle is running so fast, it's far ahead of console. It's kind of unbalanced things. And meanwhile, the games companies have taken this backward-facing. We want to make money out of the console from the off, and that's not the way forward. That's not what the success of Xbox 360 was built on, for example. That pushed boundaries. The PlayStation 1 pushed boundaries. So this is kind of success has fallen into Sony's lap. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, when we saw the Microsoft conference, and they were like TV, 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 all that stuff. I think we were like, what's this TV rubbish all about? We want like the most amazing games console. Sony have done the same thing last night. They've gone 4K, 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 4K. It's not a 4K console, sorry. And it's just one of those things. But yeah, any finishing thoughts from you guys on the console? I've done a lot of talking in this one, I'm sorry to say, but as I say, I've seen a lot of these conferences, and I just had a lot to say about it after watching it last night. Disappointment, I think, makes me want to ramble on. But guys, final thoughts, Martin?
I guess the only positive, we could potentially see some racing games benefit from the extra horsepower. Like, we're always complaining about frame rates not being optimized, so there is that chance that, especially for the racing genre, it could potentially benefit that. But on the whole, it doesn't do much for me at the moment.
Kevin,
just trying to find some sort of positive.
I'm looking forward to seeing the difference between the standard PS4 versus the PS4 Pro with the PSVR headset, just to see what sort of differences we're really going to get. And because that's a good selling point for the Pro, because the lack of 4K Blu-ray player, so that they're going to have to focus on the VR side. So I'd be interested to see just how step up there is between the two consoles.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the VR is the thing that looked quite interesting.
Which they undersold, I think.
They've undersold it. I mean, which is concerning, isn't it? Do Sony have no confidence in their VR headset? It's very strange how they've really not wanted to talk about it. And I think if anything needed its own conference, it was the VR. Could have done with its own conference, looking at all the titles, the demos, the launch, the potential, the tests that they've done. I think it would have been wonderful to get people into VR, filmed it with green screens to show people involved in that immersive world. Even EA's demo of Star Wars is absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I don't know why they're not showing the world this demo at the moment, because when you're in that X-Wing fighter, wow, you're really in that X-Wing fighter. It's very special. Even with a low resolution, it shows you the future. So, yeah, interesting. Well, listen, at the end of the day, I think ultimately underwhelmed and slightly disappointed, I think, with the conference is the feeling we walk away with last night. It's disappointing to look at. The performance is not quite differential enough to reinvest for a lot of gamers, and I think that the lack of Blu-ray is an absolute killer for it at the moment.
Absolutely.
4K Blu-ray. It'll be interesting to see how it does on the market, but I think Microsoft is given a boost to Xbox One S in terms of the Blu-ray capability, and I think Microsoft, it's going to be over to you for E3 next year. You have an open goal. Position yourself correctly, and you could be in a good opportunity of market share for the next 5 years. So this could all turn it round again. But that's it from us for now, viewers. So I hope you've enjoyed this little rant, mainly me talking, but there you go. And there'll be more from us very soon.